Hi, welcome back. I hope you had a nice week and you're ready for another weekly conversation. Have you ever heard of the new orthographic agreement of the Portuguese language 1990? Well, if you are in contact with the Portuguese community, you probably have, but if you don't, you probably have never heard of it. And if you contact a translator and you come in contact with the issue, for example, like myself, who have a disclaimer on the website saying that I'm not complying with that, it might get you confused and might think that we are actually doing something illegal or that we are doing something that it's not right. So today I decided to record this video. I have written an article about this last year, but today I decided to talk about it here because I think it is very important that we talk about this and that we engage and we explain, and especially that we create awareness for people that don't speak the Portuguese language, and for them this may be confused because it has never happened within English speaking countries, and as far as I'm concerned, all English speaking countries are quite tolerant and accepting of every variant there is in the English language. And something like this may create a little bit of a confusion actually. And why would the Portuguese want to do that? Well, in fact, if you ask that question yourself, and you're not Portuguese or you are not in contact with the Portuguese language, I can assure you that we Portuguese speaking people ask exactly the same question, and we still don't get answers, and it's not clear to anybody, and everyone is unhappy. And at the moment what we have, it's some sort of linguistic anarchy where you see people just writing things along the way because they are absolutely not sure how to write them properly. Nobody knows exactly, and sometimes obviously it's a little bit of a lack of willingness to learn and to learn the rules and know exactly what changed and what didn't. I must admit that. But in other times it's because it's confusing itself and people don't know how to write. It's completely absurd. Even when you read the actually the Republic Diary, which is where all the laws are published and everything that is done in Parliament is published, and you get mistakes there. And I have colleagues that set up a designated Facebook page to expose these sort of things, and almost every day there is articles on that diary of the Portuguese Republic that have words that are actually according to the old rules, and in the same paragraph words that are with the same new rules. So it's a mishmash, and you have absolutely no coherence, absolutely no anything. It's really disconcerting. It's really sad to see because Portugal and the Portuguese language is quite a whole language. It's a secular language, and we have so many centuries of tradition and development, natural development of this language. Then with colonization, the language spread all over the world, with Brazil in South America and then in Africa, etc. And now we have this diversity, that we have all these variants that actually enrich the language because they bring diversity, they bring more words, more pronunciations, everything, and it's everything. It's actually enriched the language. And out of a sudden, a group of politicians just decided that they should simply no, let's just unify it all and everyone just go for the same book. because it's easier. No, it isn't, and it actually, it's been proven that it's not easy. It's been proven that it's been causing issues everywhere. It's been proven that Africa simply didn't apply it because they think, well, this is not benefiting us. This is not doing anything good for us. So why should we apply it? Brazil is not keen either. Only Portugal did, and it's causing massive issues. We actually started a citizens petition that is now in the parliament. So we are hopeful that we are close to get this document revoked. There is obviously a lot of lawyers involved in this, because obviously there's people from all walks of life that see the wrong that has been done here, and they join together to get this removed, because it's wrong, it's awful. No linguists have been consulted on this, nothing. It was just imposed. And this is why he gets people so upset and against it, because it's not natural. The language didn't evolve like that in a lot of countries, in none of these countries, in fact, in none of these countries. Brazil evolved in a way, Portugal evolved in another way, Angola in another way, Mozambique in another way, and we have to respect that, and that's fine. That's the natural thing. It's just like England and the United States, Australia, South Africa, and all the countries that speak English. We all evolved in a different way, and nobody's gonna tell Australians that out of a sudden you have to speak American English or British English or South African English, or out of a sudden someone says to the whole English speaking community that they would have to speak according to the American English variant of the language, which is a simplistic way of putting it, I must admit. Sometimes, even myself, I'm guilty of this. For clients, for example, that are not in contact with the language, and this is hard to explain, and this is very hard for people that didn't come in contact with the language and don't know the language. It's hard. Why is all this fuss about something? It's hard to understand. So sometimes we kind of say this, that it's because it's similar, it's like that, but it's not necessarily that. Most of the words that the Portuguese now have been imposed are more in sync with the Brazilian variant. However, it does not mean that the Brazilian Portuguese variant has been imposed in all countries, because they also have some rules changed for them that don't make sense at all. And that's where the problem lies, is that no one is happy because it's not natural for anyone. It's been imposed. And obviously when something like this, and languages are living beings, and they develop the way we talk. It's the day-by-day life that dictates our language evolves, and what, for example, now with COVID-19, basically all the languages are acquiring new terms, and because people start creating terms. For example, I've heard funny ones like to describe someone that doesn't obey the social distancing rules and all these things, like a COVIDiot, which has been translated in all other languages. So this is a language evolving. There's new terms that have been started being used, and if honestly they make sense, then there's a consensus, and yes, let's add it to the dictionary. And I'm pretty sure after COVID we'll have a few terms added to worldwide dictionaries, because new words have been created, and this COVID is one of them. So it's quite normal, and this is the natural evolution of a language. That's how it is. It's how it is spoken in a certain country. It's how that culture speaks it, and how the culture actually communicates their culture, and it's how the culture actually is shown is through the language, and therefore obviously each country has its own, even though the mother may be the same mother. It's exactly like a family. You have a family where you have 3 or 4 siblings, and you will find that none of the 3 siblings is the same. They're not a photocopy of each other. Each one is different. Each one has its own personality. Each one has growth and grown in a different way. Even though they are in the same family, they're going to have different personalities. They're going to like different things. They're going to do different things. They're going to have different jobs, perhaps. And with languages, it's the same thing. We can think about languages as being a family, and we are, like all the Portuguese speaking countries, we are a big family, as all the English speaking countries are a big family as well. And each sibling, like Brazil, Portugal, Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, all these countries have evolved in their own way, and their culture obviously has played a massive part on the way the language has evolved in their particular country. And they're different, and that's beauty. That's amazing, because that creates diversity, and that enriches a language. And this is the sad part. The saddest part of this agreement is that they're trying to take away all this diversity, all this beauty that has been created with centuries of a different evolution in different countries. And now they, out of a sudden, a group of politicians that have absolutely no knowledge about languages and how they evolved and how they should be treated, just decide, okay, let's just put everything in the same basket, let everyone read from the same book, forget about cultural traces, forget about culture, forget about everything. Everyone speaks the same, and that's it. It's easy to understand that that's wrong. And the way we simplify things, and because most of the words are actually in sync with the Brazilian language, sometimes just to make it a bit easier to understand, we say that if it's like imposing one variant over all the other variants, but it's not exactly the same thing. So what has happened is that the Portuguese government and a bunch of politicians have decided that they wanted to unify the language, because it would be easier for the language to be understood. It would simplify the language, because it would be better in the European Union. It would be better worldwide, because it will be just one language spoken. Well, if you are listening to me right now and you are on an English speaking country, you'll be probably asking yourself, well, our language is spoken in a lot of countries, and no one has have a thought that is bad if a document, or in the European Union, or the way that the European Union, for example, deals or trades with the US. I don't think anyone in the US is going to be very offended if the documents coming from the European Union are in British English. The same way that in the European Union, no one would be offended if the documents that come from the White House would be in American English. Everyone accepts it. Yes, in the United States, they have their own variant of English. Let's accept it. That's the difference. Or if they try to do a trade agreement with Australia, obviously the documents that come from Canberra would be in Australian English, and the same as the ones from South Africa, etc., etc. So if other languages can live with their differences, embrace it, and see the value of all this variety, why can't the Portuguese? Why? And how would the Portuguese economy, or how would the Portuguese language would benefit for something as bad as this document? And that's why a lot of people have gathered and have created a citizens petition that has been tendered to the Portuguese Parliament. It's now with the Portuguese Parliament and is expected to go into Parliament to be approved. And we want this document to be revoked. We are hopeful. There's been a lot of contacts from the organizers of this petition, to which I also have signed, of course, and that I've been defending for years since this document has been imposed on us. And we are very hopeful that there is light in the end of the tunnel and that this document will be revoked. But however, it hasn't been yet. Now with the COVID pandemic, obviously everything got delayed because of other issues have been put forward, and obviously the parliaments worldwide have to do with the pandemic and any other internal issues, even though obviously they still have to deal with internal issues, but they are obviously delayed a little bit because of all of this, and it's understandable. But we are working, and we've been working hard to make this a reality and to actually revoke this document, because it is detrimental to the Portuguese culture. It's detrimental to the Portuguese language, and not only in Portugal but everywhere. For example, one of the issues is like the very common in Portuguese and also in English, the mute, those mute consonants that you say they there but they're not said, they mute. Well, I must admit, sometimes they're not mute at all. Sometimes they are there and they have a purpose, because if you don't put them there, they end up meaning something else, and that's the problem. One of the issues, for example, is the word suit, a business suit. Business suit in Portuguese from Portugal, you write fato, F-A-T-O, whilst in Brazilian Portuguese it's the same thing. However, this word is very similar. It's homophone because it has similar pronunciation. A fact, like in English, fact. It's written F-A-C-T-O, very similar to the English pronunciation, very similar to the English spelling, but with a O in the end. And if you hear me saying it in Portuguese, you will see that C, it's not totally mute. You say it, such as in English, you say in fact, and the C is there. In Portugal, when you say de facto, you say it. You can see facto. The C is there, just like in English. So taking away that C, you can easily see the confusion that is created. That C, it turns a fact into a suit, which it's not the same thing. And then, obviously, you can imagine the huge amount of jokes that came out of this. And sometimes people, because of all these things that they said, that they will abolish a lot of consonants that were not there doing anything, blah 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 blah, some people started taking them, even though the rules haven't changed the words, because in some cases both spellings are accepted, and people just started taking them out, and it's that's where the anarchy has come. It's that everything and anything, everything goes at the moment, and there's errors everywhere. And as I said, even in the Portuguese Republic Diary, where all the laws are published, we have examples of that, and that's sad, because they can't even they can't even comply with their own document. And this is the main proof that the whole thing is a farce. The whole thing is wrong, because they created a document, they created a law. However, that law is so confusing and it's so unnatural that they themselves cannot comply with it. And this is the problem. So, I would like to, and today I brought this here so I could make all my possible clients aware of the reason why we are against this. The Portuguese language is a Greco-Latin influenced language, but it's not just in Portugal. It's spoken in other parts of the world, and in those parts of the world obviously evolved in a different way, which enriched the language. If you ask me, all that diversity actually enriched the language and brought value to it. If you take it away and if you make it the same, you can say you simplify it, but you don't, because actually what the Portuguese government calls simplification, it was what they themselves cannot comply with, because it's not simple at all. So this is the reason why I have that disclaimer. And if you will see, there will be a lot of colleagues of mine that also do not comply with these rules, because we are totally against it. This is totally against the Portuguese culture. This is totally against the Portuguese language. And it's not only in Portugal. I must stress this. It's not only in Portugal that we have a huge segment of the community against it. We have Brazilian people with us that obviously think this is an absurd and they don't agree with it. We have people in Africa, obviously, and all the speaking countries in Africa that also opposed to it. From all walks of life, as I said, is not only linguists, is not only translators or writers or teachers. It is from all walks of life, from doctors to nurses, lawyers, from all walks of life, to cleaners, to everyone. So it's everyone, because this affects everyone. When you actually disturb a language, you don't affect a segment of the population. Yes, we as linguists are going to be the ones that feel it first, because we have to deal it every day. But the rest of the population have to deal it every day as well. And when you mess up with the language, you just go straight to the culture of that country, and you just go straight to the most basic need of every population, which is communication. And it's never a good thing. It's never a good deal. Yes, languages evolve, of course. Some of people, of those who defend this document, say that centuries ago we would write pharmacy with PH, so it would be PHAR blah blah blah, like pharmacy, like in English, very similar to English. And now PH was substituted by the letter F. It didn't happen in English, but it happened in Portuguese. Well, yes, But that's the evolution of the language. That's actually something that does not affect the way people talk, does not affect the language itself. It was natural. It was actually natural. It was a consensus, and it was done properly. It's not out of a sudden. Let's imagine everyone in England were forced to say the verb, the past tense of the verb to learn as a regular verb and put ed in learned, which wouldn't make sense for the British because that's not the way they use the verb to learn. Or any other things, any other, or out of a sudden everyone in Britain being forced to put the trash out. They would think, why? What's the necessity of this? Why should we say trash if we don't say trash? Yeah, we say garbage. Why? So it's simple. It's not simplifying the language. It's just imposing something that is not natural, and obviously is going to create confusion. And if the words mean the same thing, if everyone is happy at, or everyone was happy at the moment they actually imposed this, why would we change? So this is the reason that I decided to talk about this today, because I would like to create awareness for this. I would like to let people actually understand why we are against this. This is not a political campaign. This is not a political game. This is something that is actually for our culture. This was actually a political game that got in the way of something as basic as a language, and has caused all this damage, because the language is damaged by what has been created and by the confusion that has been created. And I could give you lots of examples, because every day in that page there's more examples, not only from the Portuguese Republic diary, which is very grave, which is really serious. I would say that's the most serious example of how this document is a flawed, but from everywhere, from news that you see in the Portuguese TV, in the news, in newspapers, everywhere, you see errors, really serious errors made every day, because people are confused, because people don't know how to apply these rules, because these rules are confusing. These rules go against the culture. And of course, you will always tend to write in accordance to your culture, in accordance to what you've learned when you were a child. And imposing something like this is always going to cause commotion, is always going to cause problems. And this is not politically driven. The document itself was politically driven, and none of us know what was the benefit, especially for Portugal, on this. But the response that we are having at the moment, and our campaign and the petition and all of this, it's not politically driven. We are for our culture, for the culture of Portugal and Brazil and Angola and Mozambique and all these Portuguese speaking countries, and we think every single one of them has the right of their own culture and has the right of their own variant of the language, and we think that that particular variant should evolve according to the country's culture, not according to politicians or what politicians think should it be. So this is why I created this video today, because I would love to create awareness and let you know why I don't comply with these rules, because they go against the Portuguese culture, they go against the Portuguese language, and I just refuse to see the language in disrepair. I will teach Portuguese to my daughter, but she will learn the Portuguese correctly. She will never learn the Portuguese that has now been created, which is not even Portuguese. It's something that I cannot recognize. It's something that is said. It's something that for someone that works with a language every day, and someone that loves languages like I do, it's something that it's very sad to see. And especially all the mistakes, all the misconceptions that have been created after this, it's very sad to see. And even more sad so is to see that any other country in the world and in any other language, this has happened. The Spanish are happy with their variants and nobody is complaining. The English language, the British are happy that we have all these variants of English and everyone talks their variant, everyone understands each other, and that's okay. Yes, there is that thing that there's some words in Brazil that are not recognized in Portugal. That's true. That is true. But that doesn't set us apart. It never set apart Portugal and Brazil just because Portugal says comboio and Brazil says trem. Not really. In fact, the Portuguese, I'm the generation that grew up with Brazilian soap operas. So we are quite immersed in the Brazilian culture, and we're quite immersed with whatever they do. However, they have their own variant of the language, we have ours, and we are happy with it. And it's all good. And we should remain that way. If in the future the tendency would be towards the Portuguese in Portugal start talking the way the Brazilians do, okay, maybe if that happened, would be okay to change it. But if that doesn't happen, we shouldn't, because that's killing a culture. That's killing the identity of the country, because languages are part of the identity of a country. And if you kill a language, or if you impose something on a language that is not natural, you're going to kill the identity of the country. And this is why I'm against this document, and this is why for more than 10 years Updated Words has never complied with this since it has been created. And now I'm alone, and I will not comply with this document, and Updated Words will still remain strong on this. I have already refused a contract because of this, and I will refuse every single time that this document are imposed on me, because I think it's wrong. And I think we should all defend our language, and we should all defend our culture. And I believe that in any other language of the world, if this was imposed on them, they would do exactly the same thing as we are doing now. So I hope you liked the video. I hope it helped you understand why we are against it. And I hope this creates a little bit of awareness through what is happening. Please, if you have any questions, if you after this, if you still have any questions and you don't understand a few things, please leave me a comment, ask me. I'm very happy to respond and to create awareness for this, because this is the goal here, is that people that do not speak Portuguese understand why we are against it, and why this document is creating such a fuss and such an outpour of this of upsetting, really, because that's how I could say, that's how I feel upset about it. So I hope you liked the video. I hope it helped. As I said, leave me your comments. If you like the channel, please subscribe. Let's start a conversation. Thank you so very much for being there and watching. See you next week. Bye.